is a lover of his wife. Yeah, I'm excited, man. If they get concrete, that's up with the walls at Monday and Tuesday.
So your tire's gonna go out past.
Yeah, it keeps on growing. Every time I walk out, I'm like, man, how about this one? What's this one? If I hit the lottery.
About to,
That's fair.
and where are you gonna spend it now?
We've got the YouTube channel now.
Someone shared the link
It's pretty cool.
about an hour ago for the meeting, yeah.
What's up?
See, that camera is on the board, and then there is this position for the person who stands behind that will be a picture in So what they'll see is the link from
Does it do it automatically, the switching, or does, who switches sides?
those are motion aids.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Pretty cool. Texas. It was something like they normally pick 5
Then
million
we're gonna be remote for the next 6
That's what I was
months.
saying, we could use it tonight.
And it's like that.
Tonight and then March.
In March,
That's how
yeah.
we got a crop out.
We gotta give it a good test run, I guess.
I'm not gonna say no crop out. I have some just put me out of the field. Who knows?
His face is kind of familiar.
Yes. Yeah, I remember I saw it. I booked the Bell and Acre at 50 cents, which ends up being like $1, $5, $10 pound. This is the most I've ever sold cotton for. And I was like, "Gee, I thought that was the floor."
That's what we've
Never
been
thinking
doing.
that would happen. And it actually went down to 30 for the last month or two. It's been out there in 60 acres for the last few days. Now it's down to the mid-50s. It's just kind of, it's just going to keep going. Oh my gosh. He pulled up in that same ragged rig. Stress.
You see Hammer start playing in those too. Right now, remind us, sir. Kicked him.
He doesn't think it did.
I really did.
The red means you're on.
Still 3 minutes.
TV up there.
Jeff picked up your guitar again. Said you
Yeah,
picked up your guitar again. It got quiet.
That's weird, isn't it?
Just start shuffling, you see.
Get a mark off now.
All right, it is 7 o'clock and about time to begin our meeting. If we would, everyone please stand. I'm going to ask Mr. Norris Spring to lead us in a word of prayer and Mark Griffin to lead us in our pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Our most gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us. Dear Father, I thank you for the many blessings of life. Dear Father, thank you for Jesus. Jesus, thank you for dying on the cross to save us from our sins. I ask you to be with us tonight, that everything that we say and do will be to honor and glorify you. And forgive me where I fail you. All these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I'll ask Mr. Kilser to call the roll.
Shane Connor,
Here.
Ben Couples,
Here.
Norris Frank,
Here.
Mark Griffin,
Here.
Jeff Harris,
Here.
Becky Hutcherson,
Here.
all present.
All right, we do have a quorum present, so we can proceed with our meeting and call it to order. And the first item tonight is a recommendation to accept the board agenda.
I make the recommendation.
Second.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is set. The next item is approval of the consent agenda.
I make the motion.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. There is no discussion on that. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda is approved. The next thing we have tonight is delegations, those who have asked to address the Board of Education at our meeting tonight. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Kilser for our first delegate.
This evening, we have two delegates who are going to address the board. Mr. Carlos, if you would, allow the lady to go first. I'm sure you're the gentleman who would. We're going to have Dr. Elizabeth Saunders to approach the board. And again, for those of you who know Dr. Saunders, she's a retired educator through Freed-Hardeman University and beloved daughter of Mr. George Saunders, my favorite 7th grade geography teacher.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you can address the board if you would, stand at the podium.
Okay, I need a,
Okay. She got That'll take us a few minutes, so we'll just,
oh, okay.
She jumped to that curveball of technology. She's checking for the biology and technology.
come on ahead, Dr. Saunders. Dr. Maurice is quite accomplished. He can do this really well. But if you want to, you can still be there at that podium. Is that where you need it to be?
So you have a clicker?
I'll cook for you.
Oh, okay, I have one.
Well, I've got one, but we've only got one USB.
Oh, okay, okay. Good evening to everyone.
If you would pick up the mic.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me present to you tonight. Some information that I would like to share with you, and also some requests of the board. As you see on the screen, this is the building that I want to present to you tonight. This is the building. Here again, it's the former Chester County Training School, Benson High School, North Chester Elementary School, and now it's North Chester School. As you see, this is the cornerstone of the building. Chester County Training School, I know when it was erected in 1950. And of course, you have the Board of Education, the members that were there on the Board of Education who built this building. Okay, next. This is the request from interested citizens and alumni. We would like permission and assistance to begin the process of listing Benson High School building in the National Register of Historic Places by a vote of approval from the Chester County Board of Education. As a part of this approval, we'd like a submission of the board's minutes of the meeting of August 18, 2022, as one of the documentations in the information packet to the State Historical Commission to show approval. Well, what is this? What is the National Register of Historic Places? Well, it's an honorary and official listing of the nation's historic places worthy of preservation. In Tennessee, the staff of the Tennessee Historical Commission administers the program in coordination with the National Park Service. Here again, the designation is honorary and does not place any restrictions on the property. Right now, we have 3 places in Chester County listed in the National Register of Historic Places. One of those is our courthouse. It was listed in 1979. The Hamlet Smith House in 1983. And of course, the National Teachers Normal and Business College Administration Building, what we know as Old Main Building at Freed-Hardeman, was listed in 2012. There are some examples of some of the former African-American schools in Tennessee listed in the National Register of Historic Places, and we would like to become one of those. In Davidson County, Pearl High School is listed. In Gibson County, the Gibson County Training School was listed in 2012. In Hardeman County, we have the Allen White School that was listed. In Haywood County, we have the Dunbar Carver Historic District that's listed in the National Register. Not only the school is listed, but also the district is listed. In fact, there are 23 buildings along Old Jefferson Street that are listed in the National Register. Also, the school in Stanton is listed. In Henderson County, we have Montgomery High School, was listed in 2007. In Lauderdale County, Lauderdale High School in Ripley was listed in 2021. What are the benefits? Well, a National Register listing is an honor that signifies the building is an important part of America's cultural heritage and worthy of preservation. Listed buildings may qualify for preservation projects for federal grant assistance. Owners of the listed property may apply for federal, state, and local historic preservation grants when available. Well, what is this process? How do we go about listing it? Well, here again, it's a federal listing, but most of it is done at the state level. Each state has a historic commission. Tennessee has one, the Tennessee Historic Commission. It has 14 full-time staff members, and you see the executive director as well as the National Register of Historic Places Tennessee listing, the person to contact here. Well, the first step is to complete an information packet. And of course, this information packet is information on the property's history and physical changes, such as any additions to the building or any renovations to it. And also along with that, current photographs of all the exterior and interior spaces. Okay, next. Once the packet is completed and is evaluated by the Tennessee Historical Commission, if it meets requirements, then the staff may request additional information or an opportunity to visit the property. Now, once enough information is provided, the staff will evaluate whether the property appears to meet the requirements of the listing. Properties listed in this step, then we go into step 2. It's the preparation of a National Register nomination. And of course, we would have to prepare a formal National Register nomination. In this, we need to provide, there's a form that we need to complete with instructions and examples of nominations that we could follow. The completed nomination form and photographs are returned to the National Register staff. The staff will review the nomination and provide comments for revisions. And once complete, the nomination will be scheduled for the next possible State Review Board meeting. The third step is a review by the State Review Board. The Tennessee State Review Board here again meets about 3 times a year, usually in January, May, and September. And on this board, we have professionals of architecture, history, and archaeology. The board will review the completed nomination and vote on whether to approve the nomination. If approved, the National Register staff will submit the nominations to the National Park Service in Washington, D.C., and the National Park Service has the final say on whether the property is listed, rejected, or returned to the Tennessee Higher Education Commission for revisions. When the properties are successfully listed, property owners will receive a notification from the Tennessee Historical Commission. Now, what does this information packet look like? Now, this is the first packet of information that we would need to complete. Okay, continue. Okay, skip through the introduction. Continue. Okay, now this is what we're looking at. It takes a lot of research and a lot of fact-finding information to complete this information packet. And of course, we're looking at the property name, both historic and current, the property address, the owners of the property. Continue. The property use, historic as well as current, the date of construction, the source of the information, the architect, the builder, source of information. Here again, the number of stories, as you see that most of the physical part of the building, the wall covering, the roof shape and the trim and the floor plan, all of that as far as what did it look like when it was first built and what does it look like now. And of course, any major renovations and the date of those renovations. And here again, other physical features of the property. After the information packet is completed, of course, we'll need to write a brief history of the property, why it's important, and submit that along with the information packet. Okay, continue. Okay. As far as the listing, it could be a site, and of course, this is what we want to apply for. We want to apply for the site recognition. Continue. Or it could be a historic district. And so if it's a historic district, we might want to look at the site as well as the surrounding buildings or the surrounding buildings in the community. As we think about Vincent High School, there are several historical surrounding buildings that we could possibly list. But I think we're just simply going to want to apply for the site. In fact, surrounding it, we have an old American Legion building, old Masonic Hall building. There are about maybe 3 African-American churches that are surrounding the building. And so there are a lot of, if we wanted to apply for a historic district, we could possibly do that. Okay, and the last one. Continue. Or it could be, you could apply for Farmstead. Of course, we wouldn't fall in that particular one. Okay. And so as we look at a listing on the National Register of Historic Places, here again, it's an honor. It's a source of pride for a community. It's a special recognition from the federal government that can only give a school the prestige it deserves as an important part of our American history. And so that's what I'd like to present to you tonight as far as the school board. Here again to request your permission to continue with the process or to proceed with the process of listing this particular building on the National Register for Historic Places. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or feedback?
Dr. Saunders indicated that it did not affect the property, this recognition.
Questions?
Dr. Saunders?
Yes.
There's one question for you. You had mentioned that this designation would not affect the property.
There would be no restrictions on the property.
What assurance do we have of that?
Well, the assurance is from the Tennessee Historical Commission. And so if you had a question on that, here again, you could verify that with the Tennessee Historical Commission. But the information that they gave me was that there are no restrictions on it.
Okay.
If it was recognized as an historical site, would it necessarily have to have the actual building, the structure still on site. My thought is monetarily, would it be worth preserving the actual building versus a monument on site at that location?
Well, what we're looking at, once we get it, if we can get it listed on the Tennessee Historical Commission, on the on the National Register for Historic Places, then we would be more eligible for any type of preservation grants that are available.
And that would be your only source of income other than going to the city council with something as it being a historical
Yes.
community
Right,
project?
Yes, yes.
There's no, y'all don't have as a community or alumni association with a funding of any
No,
sort?
no, no. The main thing we're looking at would be the preservation grants that would be available for us, whether it be through the state or through the federal government. Montgomery High School received, when they did theirs, they received a $90,000 grant from the state as for the renovation of their gym. And they're now using it as a community center. And now I say, this is not only for buildings, but some of you, I'm sure, might know about old cemeteries that need, are in repair or need to be listed. You know, this is a process that you might get it listed, and there are funds available for that by the national government.
Ultimately, is the goal that you're presenting, though, to preserve the site as far as the property or the building?
We would like to preserve the building as well as the property.
The building and the property.
Pardon?
I misunderstood. Did you say the building and the property, or just the property?
Both.
Both?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Any other questions?
I guess my question is, that's a pretty large building. Is there funds available to maintain that building in a way that, to keep it from looking bad for the community?
Well, that's what we're seeking. We're more likely to get grants if we have it on the National Register for Historic Places.
Buildings in the past that you just showed us,
Yes.
have they got grants?
Yes.
They
yes,
have.
In fact, I think our courthouse just recently got one for repainting it.
Okay.
Is there a timeline other than the 3-month, or the 3 meeting times that the state meets to consider? I mean, forgive me, but I forget the next one in the timeline, maybe
Well, the next
January, I
step-
think, or September?
The next step is to complete an information
Right.
packet. And the example that I showed you on the screen, the information packet, being able to supply all of that information and submitting it to the State Historical Commission.
Sure.
And so there's not a timeline, it's just a matter of being able to collect as much data as we can, information as we can to
Sure.
supply,
Yes, ma'am.
and hopefully they will approve it.
If a status came down as approved, but no funding resource came behind it, say we're not like some of the other schools, then at that point, could we look at other options to maintain the site? If we could not maintain the building, at least the site would be, approved as a national, well, like someone said, a park or a monument or something for the community.
Okay. Let me make this comment. It's not necessary that I have no approval, it is a public building. But to go along with the documentation, I think it would help. It showed that it had your approval. as well as the county commission.
Sure.
But here again, it's a public building, and so we would necessarily have to have an approval. But it would certainly help our cause as for trying to get it on the National Register for Historic Places.
Do you have to do the same thing, Dr. Saunders, with the county commission?
Yes, I would
Okay.
like to do the same thing with
They-
it. Here again, we don't need approval, but here again, I think it would help our cause. I think it would help the documentation that we have to submit.
Well, and I think it addressed, because I know that the next county commission meeting is the 12th of September.
Yes.
So it's a few more weeks down the road in
Yes.
next month, so.
And my thought is with some of the questions, like you said, maybe some of the questions, I know like one Ben had, would be maybe a little research with the Tennessee Historical Commission, is after you present to the commission, could we, since tonight's a delegation, the first time that we have had the full information shared with us, could we take the next month and table this to do some research on our own and then come back with the, whether we, want to add that to the agenda for the vote?
Yes, that's fine. Again, it's gonna take us a long process, a long time to actually gather this information for the information packet. I think you, when you looked at that information packet, and that's one reason I wanted to share it with you, because you see how much information, how much historical information we had to try to gather. I think the current information we can gather, but now the historical information, it's gonna be difficult for us to gather, and it may be that some we cannot find.
Okay. My suggestion, which is I don't think requires, maybe it does require a vote, but we can, but move to an appointed time which would be the September meeting, and kind of get the feedback from the county commission and a chance to research some of the questions the board members have. We
Add
could-
it to the September agenda.
Yeah, it's not table it necessarily because
Prior
that's
to the
indefinite, but
county
if you
commission.
move to an appointed time and the rules of order, that means it would appear on the September, or whatever meeting we want to appear on, but I would suggest let her present to the county commission, that way we get their feedback, we can do our own research, and then address the issue at that time.
Could we also ask the committee to look at the building and just see what kind of shape it's in and get a report back on that?
Ms. Summers, have you been in the building lately? How long has it been since you've been in the building?
It's been
Several years.
several years, so, no.
Because any preservation, I would want to make sure we had, like it's the funding to make sure it does the community justice, that it is favorable for the community to have that. And if, in a condition that represents the history that the building does represent.
I think
So-
too, in applying for grants, in my mind, the more you do for the community, churches, cemetery, you will be able to get more grants probably for
Yes.
different things.
Yes.
But if you spent the money to restore that building with grant money, with no other monetary other than whatever lump sum the county commission offers, then what happens 10 years down the road when you can't get another grant, and then it begins to look like an eyesore again as a historical monument? That's where my mind goes. I would rather it be a small venue and a historic site, even if we even went so far as to build a new building in the same community in the future, looking down the road, and possibly name it something to do with the community. That wouldn't be historical as in the past, but it would still preserve the community, so that's where my mind goes with it.
And of course, when we look at preservation of the building, some of the other schools that I showed you, they've done it in stages. For an example, with Montgomery High School, the old Montgomery High School, they just simply remodeled their gym, and they're using it as a center.
Because you can get a
Remodeling the
grant for
gym,
that as
or
a community shelter.
in addition, remodeling the cafeteria, where different maybe churches in the area could use that maybe
Food
as
drives.
for meetings, fellowship meetings. That's what I see it as. I don't see it as remodeling the whole building at once,
I understand.
but I see it as remodeling it, or if we could get grants to preserve certain sections at different stages.
And my suggestion, I guess we should vote to have it reflected in the minutes, that we actually do table instead of move to the September. Table to after the county commission addresses it. That way, if they do not happen to get it on their September agenda, we're not committed to come back in September. But the meeting following the county commission's presentation, then we come back for a discussion on what she's requesting. Does that sound favorable to the board? Or is there any questions or addendums to that?
Is that a motion?
There you, yeah, I guess I can make that kind of, yeah, I'll make a motion, we table this and then readdress after the county commission has a chance to weigh in with their opinion and hear the presentation as well.
Okay, I'll second that.
All right, is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, Ms. Saunders, that was very interesting, yes.
Dr. Saunders, could you share your PowerPoint with me so at least we'll have a record of those sites that we can go to?
Yes, sure.
And I'll share it with the board members.
In fact, the Tennessee Historical Commission has a website
Yes, ma'am.
that you can go to, and the contact persons that you can.
Yes, ma'am.
contact.
Well, it looks like you've already done some of the legwork, so I want to take advantage of your work.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
In fact,
Dr. Saunders.
Ms. Smith is the one that I've been in contact with, and her name is on there, and her title, and she is on the Tennessee Historical Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I would like to begin the process of collecting the data, whether or not you approve it or not, I would
Sure.
like to begin the process of collecting this data, because it's gonna take a long time to collect it.
Well, a former colleague of your dad, Mr. James Bright, is our historian in the county.
Right.
He would be, in my effort, would be the first source of guidance because he would have probably the most collective history
Right.
of our county.
Right. So, I will begin the process here again, but I would like your approval if possible along with the documentation. Here again, it's gonna take a good while to do this, time to do this, but, I would like your approval. But if I don't have your approval, then that's fine too.
Right.
But I am gonna go ahead with the process.
Yeah, the process, sure, yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Saunders.
Yes.
Next, we have a second delegation tonight, Mr. Carlos Schmidt, the owner of Keystone Academy. Mr. Kelsey.
Do you need much more introduction?
Whatever you're willing to do.
Well, the man standing up with the attractive shirt on with Keystone Academy embossed on his, yeah, he has to show it on. It's a sharp shirt.
Thank
He's
you.
come to address the board.
Thank you. Ironically, 1 year ago tonight, you know what happened here in Henderson? Joe Malero had a town hall meeting down at Besso's to gather ideas about what our community needs and how to spend the COVID funds that the county had received. I went to that meeting to promote the expansion of the tech school because they need space out there, so my purpose was to go there. After sitting there, after my presentation and listening to all of the other people, childcare became the issue. And it was ranked within the second category of the study that had been done for Chester County on how to utilize the funds. The first was the internet, the next was workforce development, and as part of that was childcare, because you need childcare to support your working families. So out of that meeting came the idea, and it went from 0 to 90 to nothing now. We've opened a center. We're serving 90-plus families. We're approaching that 100 mark for kids, and they come in every day looking for space. The issue that Troy is well aware of, the after-school group. If you're a parent working in Jackson, you can't come down here and pick your child up and get them out to Keystone Academy and run back to Jackson. We worked on this beginning in January of last year, and we had no children after school age attending from January through the end of your school year. I understood that, you know, with the new organization, company gonna control the transportation, that would solve the problem, but it didn't. We're basically at the same situation. We need transportation for those kids that are needing to get out there. Because if you're a kindergartner and your mother works in Jackson at the hospital, she can't run down here and pick them up and get them out there to our center where there's supervision of an adult, what have you. You know, the procedure, I guess, is to request a child be dropped off at some location. But unfortunately, we're not in that position now to help that child get to our location. We've got right now 12 children that are being allowed to come out there. There's 2 buses that come through the driveway. One, I believe, is a special needs bus maybe. Drops off one child, there's probably 20 seats on there that comes from west. And then we have the other bus that comes from over in this area that drops off, I think, 10 or 11 children. So that's the situation. I'm throwing that out. These are parents that pay our taxes, provide services for this community. We stepped up and started child care service to help them. Somewhere along the line, something has to be to help those parents that can't get that service. And so that's what I'm appealing to the school system. How can we get this situation resolved? Troy and I, we've talked, and since we've opened up this, before we opened the center. So that's why I'm here. I'm speaking for parents that don't want to get involved in trying, because we get calls. It's not our call to say, no, you can't ride. It happens to be the school system's call on that. And so we can't go out and tell children and parents that you can come, because we can't guarantee them a ride. The reason we don't do it ourselves, the state has told me, we don't encourage you to run a transportation system. I'd probably lose our license if I had a little fender bender or something like that. It'd be all over, no child care, and so it'd be zero again. So I'm seeking some kind of support to do something about it. It'd probably take an hour to pick up the kids from east and west and get them out to the center. Because you think the distance, only just 4 or 5 miles. And I think there's 2 or 3 buses that come within short distance of our center that are not currently coming down Kindred Drive. So, and then the special needs bus, under an emergency situation, can it be used for other children?
Any questions from the board? Mr. Carlos?
You said you might have a fender bender. I'm sure, I don't know that you might lose your license, but I'm sure they sell insurance at a pretty penny that would allow you to do so. I don't know that, you know, of course, I'm just speaking off the top of my head. There are other businesses that commute children, so, and I know they have insurance and they do it themselves. As far as the charge, the discussion with the prices in here, was that done between Eco-Ride and?
We've had the conversation with Mr. Carlos. Again, Jonathan's in the back of the room, was present at that meeting with 2 representatives from Eco-Ride. Of course, Jonathan is now an employee of Eco-Ride. And the negotiation during that meeting, what they could do more than what we were able to do during the school year, because these conversations with Mr. Carlos started back in the spring of last school year. And the way I was informed, that I informed Mr. Carlos, it was capacity on the bus and the lack of additional drivers to be able to make that route split to where you could accommodate more students. Now, Echo Ride offers, and Mr. Carlos just mentioned it too, 10 or 11 students who are now being transported with the Echo Ride driver from East Chester and West Chester. And that was a compromise that we could not offer last year, but they are offering now. But it's still the same thing. It's the issue of, we've got buses. The issue is we don't have enough riders or drivers.
Yeah.
And with the route that is at his location, it is at capacity or close to capacity. He's able to get some riders on the bus.
See, there was a child care center in that location prior to us opening ours. And the bus came by and dropped kids off, 15 plus. And that's only been a little over a year ago. So I don't know what happened. Children are dropped off throughout the town. Parents fills out that form, I want them dropped off at Freed or downtown at a business, and they drop them off there. So if we can do that, what about the parents that's requested their child to be dropped off at our location? So,
Well, as I recall from our conversation, where, of course, you've mentioned this to me several times, and I felt like Coach Eads and Jonathan were echoing the same sentiment. Coach Eads had made, and we both agree, all of us agree, that we'd like to see every business with daycare being provided and supported. But Britt spoke up and said that as long as it doesn't change the route and there's available seating, he would always make that exception. The issue is, again, it's at capacity for your location. I don't know about, I'm not sure about the 1 year where it had 15, because now you're starting to talk about the COVID time, which that could have been the justification, because we didn't have as many students about a year ago who were riding a school bus.
I think
It might have been more
a
than that.
little over a year.
Yeah.
I wanted to share that with you, and if there's anything you can do to help out, because we get calls from parents, and matter of fact, we've had calls mid-afternoon saying they're not gonna haul that child today. Now, if you're a parent, what do you do? And that's happened just this week.
Was it the child that Ms. Carl had already provided names to Echo Ride, or is this another child? Because again, let's be factual with
But
the
if
conversations.
they were riding it already,
Okay.
and then they'd ridden it previously, and that day it was gonna be overloaded, then you can't ride, so. I don't know, it's just a challenge that we need to look at and come up with a solution.
Well, we have discussed a solution about, after the routes have run,
Yeah,
that we could send another bus, and again, Jonathan, you may need to speak up. But, again, for field trips, for sporting events, after the route runs, we could have buses go back around, whichever route got finished quickest, go by and pick up at the campuses. And again, I've already done some of the math like you did, where West Chester is approximately 2 miles from your campus. Even if you were picking up students as old as the junior high, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, that's 9 miles from your campus. And I've talked to a parent myself who said that they would be willing to pay more if they could be assured that after route would come back and pick up the kids. Now, it would be a later pickup. I think Britt said that repeatedly while we met that day, that it would be a later pickup that we would accommodate. But again, we want you to be successful. We tried to work this out last year by saying if you could find us a driver, because that was the issue. Of course, again, speaking about the transportation yourself, just like what Ben has said, his sister is Liberty, who has one, and she does have vans who picks up. So, I mean, that's what other businesses in your line are doing, and,
well, they flat out told me, you can't have a 15-passenger van. The folks that do that sometime
You can have 14 or less, because I have done some checking on that for my business.
Well, they told me, the state certification folks flat out said you can't have a 15-passenger.
I would agree with you. 14 or less is what I said. That's what they've told me, is 14 and under, not 15 and up. You're right.
So a smaller bus, but you may have to have more than one of them.
That's right.
A smaller bus, but you may have to have more than one.
Well, they wouldn't allow me to get I've gotta get a bigger one, like a 25-passenger van or more.
You couldn't
I
have
mean,
multiple
I would
small.
have had it already, if that was possible, but I don't wanna lose a license for a center because of this. I mean, it'd be crazy. I mean, it would cut the whole idea of serving the people of this county totally out. I mean, if I shut it down today, that'd be a disaster. And if they shut it down, it'd be a disaster. I'm just presenting it,
Sure.
you know, there's got,
Yes, sir.
the special needs bus, it got there today at 3:12. Why couldn't it be cycled back around?
Well, just like you said, it's gotta be for special needs children. That bus is purchased through through IEP, through IDEA, and there are restrictions.
But that driver, is that the end of their road?
Jonathan's behind you. He could speak to that.
No, sir, it's not. It's not. She
So you
goes,
go pick up
she
there?
goes south of town down towards Bangor and drops off at.
Drop off one or two, right?
I'm not sure how many, but it's a few.
Yeah, those buses are accommodating to the students based on their needs and their IEPs.
But I appreciate your time, and we need to work on it, because it's a lot of hard-working parents that I'm fighting for. I mean, they don't like to come and talk to groups like this, but behind it, privately,
Would you be willing to ask your parents if they would pay more? Because we can make those arrangements now.
well, that was one of the reasons, you know, when we went to the other place, the cost blew it out of the water.
That's an option that can work now.
That's a resolution. That would work a lot faster. This is new to us, Jonathan. There's several people sitting in this room that can attest. The drivers are the issue. I mean,
I fully
if
understand.
you've got 40
that.
buses and 20 drivers, you still only have 20 buses.
Yeah.
Unless they're making multiple routes and people are staying over, and, I mean, it becomes a nightmare. It can. And 2 years from now, that route may change because kids grow up, and that whole community over there on Kinder Drive may not have not one single school-age child. So now where's that bus that used to come by your center going? I mean, it changes. I'm all for it. I wish we could offer free bus rides, but at the same time, we gotta pay a driver. And right now, we're at the bare minimum.
And I don't wanna throw hot water on it, but if you drop off another parent's child at some other location, are you gonna tell the other parent that you say you can't help them? No? Is there fairness there?
The fairness would be, if it's an existing route with space on the bus available, then I believe it's okay to drop them off. It's not a change of a route and there is space available on the bus.
But we're not gonna kick kids off the bus that live in a dwelling on that road to accommodate your center.
Oh, no, I don't want you doing that.
It's basically a supply and demand. There are so many seats, and when those seats are filled, none of us can do anything without additional drivers that can take on those new buses. But,
So where are we in the status as far as bus drivers, being ready to be added to the fleet?
I have two that have their permit and working. They should have their license maybe 2 weeks. And I have, in the past 2 weeks, I have sent 7 for background check and drug tests. So once all the results get back, you know, I may have 7 more starting. So
See, that would provide us a lot more room to breathe and make adjustments to routes that,
What is the turnaround time from drug test and application to put them in a bus?
It depends on the person. It could be as quick as 3 weeks, and it could be as long as a month and a half. It just,
So 3 to 6 weeks?
depends on the person. So, I'm projecting mid to end September, I should have most routes back in play, as long as everything plays out like it should. So, there is an issue on 25 right now. That route that goes back east on has 82 kids that want to ride that bus. And that is including 8 that we have previously approved for Keystone. But like Mr. Carlos said, there has been anywhere from 9 to 12. So we have extras slipping on there from somewhere. But I have to make some adjustments starting tomorrow. I've got to look into it because I found out today that there is no seats left on that bus by the time it leaves the high school. So they're kind of crowded and pushing out each other out in the aisles. So I have to find a way to make some adjustments so that I can have, because it's unsafe right now. So.
Any other questions? Or? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate you. Next on our agenda tonight is our moment of spotlight or celebrations, and we do have one of those to address tonight, or a couple actually. So.
Well, I've asked Dr. Stephen Maurice to share with the board some preliminary results with TCAP from this past spring. We have had some initial share-outs before cut scores were provided when we learned about the ranking as compared to other districts within the state of Tennessee. Dr. Stephen's going to provide a little bit more information. Still, everything that will be available for families, for communities, are still yet to be provided yet. There's still a period of vetting still with the data, but we will share as much as we can tonight. And Dr. Maurice is got the knowledge base to respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk with you tonight. Hopefully tonight what you're going to see is evidence of hard work in our district from our students and our staff. I think the results speak for themselves. We do have some positive results that we can share tonight, so I look forward to doing that with you. I want to start by talking about some of the terminology because honestly, I still am to the point I can't keep up with the acronyms. There's a new acronym, it seems like every week. When I refer to TCAP, what I'm talking about is the Tennessee Comprehensive Assessment Program. It includes not only what you think of as the regular TCAP test and your EOCs, but it actually includes WIDA testing for ELL students. It includes ACT. It is a comprehensive program. So any testing that we give falls under that category. When you see the terms ACH, that's generally referring to grades 2 through 8 achievement tests. Sometimes you'll see it referencing just achievement in general. EOC, of course, is end of course exams, and that's at the high school level only. That's at certain milestone courses, we measure students' mastery of that content. And hopefully what we find is they've mastered that particular content and are ready to move on. The reporting categories this year did change. They're new, came out spring of '22. They now align to the federal terminology. What Tennessee had been using did not quite align with what the federal government was using. Now it does. We still have the 1 through 4 indicators, but the lowest level is now referred to as below expectations. Level 2 is approaching. Level 3 is now meeting expectations. And level 4, which used to be called mastery, is now exceeded expectations. I think it kind of clarifies that a little bit for parents and people who don't necessarily work in education every day. I think it gives a little bit of clarity to what those categories actually mean. Because a lot of times if you see like meeting expectations was on track, well, what does that mean? If I'm a parent reading a report, what does on track mean?
meeting expectations, I think, clarifies that a little. AMO stands for Annual Measurable Objective, and what we're looking at in these particular AMOs are growth in achievement. So what we want to see year from year is growth in a particular subject grade level each year, with the goal of continual improvement. I'm going to look first at grades 2 through 8, and I'm going to give just a brief overview. I'm not going to dig into specific schools. This is district-wide results. So a couple of highlights to look at. What we wanted to do, Mr. Kilzer and I and Dr. Faulkner and several others at the office here sat down. We wanted to get a full picture of what our data was showing this year. A lot of times if you look at just one piece of information, it can give you a false sense of optimism, or it can give you a false sense of, well, we're not doing so great. So we wanted to see the full picture. So what we did is we took all the data from 2019 to 2022. We wanted to see where are we as far as compared to pre-pandemic levels, and then we wanted to see our change overall and our change from year to year. As you can see, third grade ELA specifically, third grade math and ELA did meet their AMOs this year, but looking at third grade ELA, it is 6.2 points above where they were at pre-pandemic levels. So, and third grade math sitting at less than a point away from where they were statistically. That's not a huge difference. So, and I think you'll see this across our grade bands. We are sitting at least at or better than where we were pre-pandemic levels, which is where we hoped we would be. Of course, a lot of that is due to the fact that you all made the decision to have school that year. It was a difficult decision. You all made the decision to stay in school the next year when a lot of districts were saying, well, let's go virtual for a couple of days. Let's do this and that. We were here. We wanted to do what was best for our kids, and I think our data demonstrates that that decision was right. Looking at middle school data, grades 4 and 5, the big celebration here is going to be fourth grade ELA. There's been a huge focus from the state on early literacy. That goes from elementary on into middle school, and I think this is evidence that that intervention is working. Our students are benefiting from that. Compared to pre-pandemic levels, even though fourth grade ELA did not make AMO, they're 2.8 points above where they were at pre-pandemic levels. And as you can see, there's some pretty consistent improvement from year to year. Looking at fifth grade ELA, 7 points above where they were last year. They did make AMO. Fourth grade math, a point above where they were. Fifth grade, 11 points above in math from where they were the prior year. So even though we may not be in some of those areas at pre-pandemic levels, we are seeing growth from the prior school year. And again, fifth grade math did meet AMO. Fourth grade science and fifth grade science. Science is one of those areas we've not had data for several years, so we're just now starting to see how that data compares from year to year. Fourth and fifth grade science did, of course, make AMO. Junior high school results, and I know Dr. Anderson is here, and I fully expect at some point she will scream, so just be prepared. This is a big celebration for us. I can honestly say, because I worked at junior high prior to coming to the board office, this is the best set of data that we have seen come out of the junior high school in years. And this is quite a bit to celebrate. Just look at 2021 for the AMOs. Not a single AMO was met. Go to 2022 data, 6 of 9 AMOs were met. That much of a change from one year to the next is extremely impressive. So we definitely want to speak to the work going on at the junior high. Dr. Anderson, her leadership, and I think her teachers have bought in. Her teachers work extremely hard. Junior high is a weird age. It just is, and it's very difficult. But it is rewarding. And as you can see, comparing to pre-pandemic levels, 6th, 7th, 8th, ELA, and math, all but 7th grade ELA above where they were at pre-pandemic levels. So exceptional results from the junior high. Moving on to high school EOC results, again, end of course assessments. looking at specific celebrations, I spoke with Mr. Fenimore, who really has a focus on literacy, but he's also looked at data for years. I mean, Mr. Fenimore can talk to you for hours about numbers. And one thing that he specifically mentioned was our English 1 and English 2 numbers. These are historically the highest English 1 and English 2 scores that we have seen at the high school since the transition to the more rigorous testing and more rigorous standards. So exceptional results, English 1 and English 2. U.S. history, we did go down a little bit in U.S. history, 0.3 points. Not a significant change. If you look, English 1 and English 2 did make their AMOs this year. Geometry, of course, we have been solid in geometry for several years now. If you know the group of teachers that works there, you know that they are dedicated to making sure that their kids get it. I know specifically Mr. Beaver, he's not with us anymore. He has retired, but take him, like him, love him, you were going to learn geometry. So, and I think that shows in our data. Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 will be an area of focus. Geometry being the net change over all three of those data sets of years, 21.8 points of improvement. So exceptional results out of high school. Looking at the biology data, being down a point from last year. Again, science is one of those areas where we're just now getting enough data to really be able to start making comparisons. The teachers that work in that area, exceptional job. I know they're working hard, and I fully anticipate that we're going to see good results come out of biology. Mr. Kilzer did want me to take just a few minutes. I'm going to go really quickly because I know we're pushing 7 o'clock to talk about the statewide results and just kind of focus on the trend that statewide we've seen. If you look at third grade ELA, proficiency rates, third grade ELA, again, there's been a focus at the state level on early literacy, increased from 32.1% in 2021 to 35.7% in 2022. The interventions are working. There's stable trends and student scoring from the mastered level, and we're seeing a shift of students going from lower levels of proficiency moving into those higher levels of meeting expectations and exceeding expectations. Again, fourth grade, we saw it in our district. There's a large increase statewide of students who are now scoring exceeding expectations in the fourth grade. So that is exceptional to see. ELA is a difficult area to teach. I've never taught ELA. My wife does. And it is very difficult what ELA teachers are asked to do. Huge set of standards. You're talking about not just reading, but you're talking about writing, grammar, everything that goes into it. ELA is one of those subjects that really is about 3 subjects in one. So seeing this growth is exciting. Sixth grade again, seeing huge jumps in our levels of mastery. Seventh grade again, from 2021 to 2022, significant growth. Eighth grade again, we're seeing the same trend. High school, English 1 and English 2, I told you that was really an area of celebration for us. Statewide, they're seeing that trend as well. It's the largest rates of proficiency increases in the past 5 years. So statewide, those results are exceptional. The 5-year trend in high school ELA demonstrates an overall positive trajectory, even with the challenges of the pandemic. Looking at math quickly, third grade math increasing from 31.3% in 2021 to 36.4% in 2022. There's a notable decrease in third grade math statewide of students scoring in the lowest reporting category. So that's encouraging data to see. We want our students to come out of those lower levels and start moving up into areas of mastery. Proficiency rates in fourth grade, again statewide, there was an increase from 2021 to 2022. Fifth grade, we see the same trend. Proficiency rates in fifth grade math specifically increased nearly 6 points from 2021 to 2022. Sixth grade math, again, it's an area I know Dr. Anderson has celebrated The results in sixth grade math statewide, specifically at our junior high, are showing clear signs of improvement. Seventh grade, the trend again, student increases in scoring exceeding and meeting expectations. Seventh grade math actually increased from 22.9% to 30.2% in 2022, so a major jump there. Eighth grade math, we don't offer eighth grade Algebra 1, so we're looking specifically at our eighth graders taking the regular eighth grade math course. Eighth grade mathematics proficiency increased 6 points from last year to this year, so, and that, again, that's statewide. High school, end of course, the way those subject areas go, you start in Algebra 1, your next course is geometry, followed by Algebra 2. And again, statewide, the trend is that we are seeing an increase in students who are meeting and exceeding expectations. Are there any questions? I'm waiting on you, Mr. Norris.
The only thing I can say is they did good. Overall, I mean, the teachers, it's working, it's working.
I think when you see so much negativity in the media right now around education, the fact that our educators and our students and our leaders in our schools are able to come into school each and every day, ignore that negative media, and produce positive results speaks highly of our district.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to our administrators who are here. Good job. Appreciate it. Well, we do have one item of our business we need to address tonight. This is a recommendation to the board to revise our policy 2.804. And what this is, it would align our mileage and meals and the incidentals to match with the state reimbursement rates. So you want to share that a little
Well,
more about
just
that?
like your narrative and your agenda shares, we were notified, and again, fortunately, we've got staff that are paying attention to state mileage reimbursement rates, and it did go up again in July. It went up to 63 cents per mile. In the conversation among other districts in the state, one director in particular suggested, rather than only changing when the mileage rates adjust at the state level, reflect in your board policy that you will align yourself to whatever the state rate is, because it could not only go up, it could go down, either way. So then it would be indicative for us, regardless of whether or not we had prior notice, when we get notice, we can adjust that because our policy would read that way now. Also, as it's reflected in our, this new policy, and this is a policy draft that I first received from the TSBA staff, and then following some other districts close to us, Gibson County in particular, inclusive of not only the mileage reimbursement to align to the state, but also reimbursements for meals and for incidentals when our staff travel to different locations within the state because of either conferences or work training dates. There is a per diem daily rate for meals and incidentals that we would be, based on this policy, reflective of.
That amount is set by them too.
That's set by the state. Yeah, and that's easy to found, you know, anybody can go on the state, access and see those, values.
So basically, that would take the place of receipts and things of that
We
nature.
would still wanna collect receipts,
Right.
but yes, that would take, it would not be, I mean, as you understand, per diem rates, once you're there on site, say Nashville, say Knoxville, Middle or East Tennessee, Memphis even, there is a certain dollar amount for the day for meals and incidentals, and then that can break down per breakfast, lunch, and dinner and incidentals.
We would not necessarily collect receipts if we go this route.
Right.
That would be
It is what
dollar
it is,
amount.
basically,
Yeah,
right,
no
okay.
matter whether it
Okay.
was, whether the receipt was over or under.
Because they're gonna get the same amount.
They're gonna get the same
regardless.
amount,
Right.
yes.
And it takes out the tax issue.
Right,
Yes,
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Is there a motion to approve this recommendation to align our rates with the state reimbursement rates?
I'll make that motion. Second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it is approved. The next, just if we have any updates, any that you'd like to share with the board, Mr. Kilser? or-
Well, and I will just speak to the first one, because the last board meeting, when it was the evaluation discussion with my evaluation, and I'd shared that with the vision, post that information, that I would begin to share an update or a focus on where we are going toward meeting that vision. Again, including your board packet, we do want to have our students being able to have the necessary skills to be successfully competitive in a challenging, complex world. And during that time of reflecting on our vision, I was reviewing some data for reporting at the state that deals with what programs do we offer in addition to your standard programs for graduation requirement. And looking at our career and technical education at the high school, our dual enrollment courses at the high school, and our honors courses, I reflect on those. Again, specifically talking about our career and technical education courses, we have 30 separate courses offered within 9 programs of study. And when you do the math, or you look at the number of students enrolled in those specific courses, there are over 1,000 students that are going to be sitting in those courses during the day. Now, at the high school, we only have 816 kids, so we do know that there's going to be students who are taking multiple courses within a certain program of study to pursue. Within our dual enrollment courses, that would be partnerships with Freed-Hardeman University, Jackson State Community College, and the TCAT programs. We have 12 separate courses offering that 671 of our students are enrolled in. And then after that, with the honors, we offer honors 1, 2, and 3 in English. And of those 3 separate courses offered, there's 158 students enrolled. So again, when we're looking toward, are we focusing our attention to improve our students' opportunity to be successful at the next level? I would say that based on the number of students participating in very productive programs of study at the high school. Also, I don't know if you had received the publication that Freed-Hardeman puts out each year, prep to their season, or prep to their school year, called Seasons, I believe. And there was a one-page article in there that was results of our students who had received their associate degree this past year, or past school year, from Freed-Hardeman University. So again, not only did we have students who are finishing TCAT certification programs before graduation, but we also had I'd say a dozen or more who were able to complete their associate degree also in that same window. So we're proud of that success, because those students have understood what it means to go through a productive struggle. They have either the necessary skills to take it to the next level, whether that next level is higher ed or going right to the workplace.
You have a list of capital project updates in your packet. Is there any questions about those, or anything else that needs to come before the board tonight? All right. There is nothing. There are a couple of dates we need to share. Our next meeting, we'll begin our off-site visits in September. It will be September 22nd, and we'll be going to East Chester Elementary School for our next board meeting. Also, I want to draw your attention tonight as we will be celebrating the service of Mr. Norris Frank and Mark Griffin on August 29th at 6:30 at the Chester County Junior High. And on behalf of the board, I just want to thank both of you men for your service and your heart and your passion for our students and our children. This district has been bettered by your service on this board, and I want to thank you for what you both have done.